Today is October the 7th, and Israel is marking 2 years since the deadly attacks where Hamas killed more than 1,200 people and took more than 250 people hostage. Well, I want to welcome from Tel Aviv, Udi Goren. He is the cousin of Tal Haimi, whose remains are still being held by Hamas in Gaza. I really appreciate your time today. I can only imagine how emotionally and physically exhausting this fight has been. 2 years since the attacks, not just for you, but for all the families. Udi, how are you holding up?
Well, on the one hand, we've never been this close, or at least it never have seemed to be this close to ending this catastrophe. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, we've been here before. We've experienced many failures and letdowns. So, I'm keeping my hopes up. It looks good, what the president has done in the past week, rallying up all the Arab countries behind him, rallying up all the European countries behind this deal, rallying up Netanyahu behind this deal. Now there's one piece missing from this puzzle, and that is Hamas. And we've seen what they've done 2 years ago, so I'm trying not to be let down again.
Yeah. I want to understand a little bit more about your cousin, Tal, what kind of person he was, and what you want the world to know about him and his young family.
I'll say two things. First, the what he was a very gentle soul. He was never the first person you'd notice when you walk into a room, but he was always the first person people turned to when they needed help. He was very handy. He was a civil engineer. He was the guy you'd go to when you got new IKEA furniture or needed something fixed around the house, and he would always be the one lending a hand, very much a problem solver. But first and foremost, he was a family man. He was a great father and husband and son and grandchild. And this is what people really remember him for, just a great part of his community. But I think there's one anecdote from 2 years ago, from October 7th, that I think would let you know what Tal was about. When he was patrolling the kibbutz as a part of the emergency squad, the first responders, as soon as they knew there were people trying to get into the kibbutz, and he was making his way to the front gate, knowing he was going to confront terrorists, risking his life after he had left the house, and he knew that his wife and kids are at real danger because the handle for their safe room wouldn't lock. So if the terrorists made it to their home, they would probably get them. With this in mind, his kids and his wife in danger, walking towards the front gate to confront the terrorists that were trying to get into the kibbutz, he made a phone call to his workplace half an hour away to ask how they were doing. And this is the kind of guy that he was.
Yeah, he sounds like a remarkable guy. And you've not only been fighting for him, but for all the hostages. You've been deeply involved with the Hostages and Missing Families Forum, serving on the steering committee. And you've sat across the table from Israel's political leadership, including the Prime Minister. And you've said that creating a media stir forces politicians to pay attention. Do you believe the Israeli government has been doing everything possible to secure, the return of Tal's remains and other hostages?
I think they've made many wrong decisions along the way. If have they done everything possible, they would have already been here. And I think they had other interests in mind, and they've made other preferences. And I think they were wrong. If you ask them, they might still say, we were right here. Look, we got this deal now on the table, which is very beneficial to Israel. I think that this should have happened a long time ago, and we should have prioritized bringing back the hostages over continuing fighting Hamas a long time ago, because still, even after we bring back the hostages, we will have to keep implementing Trump's plan, or any other plan for that matter, to make sure that Hamas doesn't grow back to the monstrous dimensions and threat that it was to Israel. And this has to be done either way. And this is why I believe they should have prioritized much earlier.
Yeah. And after so many false starts when it comes to negotiating the release of the hostages and the end of the war, how much hope do you genuinely feel right now?
It looks different. It looks different again because essentially the entire world is rallying up behind this deal. Every mediator, every negotiator, every ally that we have, and to be truthful, every ally that Hamas has is also backing up this deal. And we see the negotiation team going out. We see that, or at least it seems like, everyone involved has the interest to make this happen. And this is why I think this time it feels different. But this is just my sentiment. What happens on the ground, there's still so many things that could go wrong. At the end of the day, as I've said, not only is it a very complex issue, but also on the other side of the fence, there is a terrorist organization that has zero interest in our lives, in their own lives, and in their people's lives. And we're dependent on them to end this war.
Udi Goren, we appreciate your time and all the work that you've done, and we're thinking about everyone there in the region today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.